Oh yeah.
Hey guys, I guess it would help if I didn't constantly hit buttons the wrong way. How is everyone tonight? Welcome, chat. Thanks for being here.
Yep.
So,
Hello, everyone.
I'll remember Allison, and we have got Mark Milligan with us tonight, which is Harry's brother. And if y'all remember, we talked about that the week before Thanksgiving. And Mark's here to kind of help us dive into this a little bit more and help give us some more information that we didn't have last time, and try to get some answers for his family. Welcome, Mark.
How you doing? Thank you for having me.
We are doing great. I hope the chat is doing good. I hope everybody is good and stuff from Thanksgiving.
Too much. That's the problem.
Oh, by the way, Mark, I found you a Vikings hat
All
that I
right.
got saved back for you.
Good. Always, I
Yeah.
can always use another one of those.
Oh, yeah.
Well, okay. Well, Mark, go ahead and kick us off. Why don't you tell us about your brother and how we got to where we're at?
Okay. Well, I guess like I say, I listened to the last podcast when you guys talked about it. You covered a lot of the details, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Basically the story started on June 30th of 1984. He normal day, did some work, and then went to go hang out with friends and just kind of do what 21-year-olds do on the weekend. Went to town that night. From what I gather now, did what, like I say, what we all did back then. Did a lot of maybe driving around, hung out, played some cards, and it was a holiday weekend, so they had some softball tournaments going on that weekend that I know he was supposed to play in on Sunday. But went out, basically. The original story went out, was hanging out with friends somewhere around bar closing time, 2 o'clock in the morning. Him and three of his friends, Jeff Adler, Doug Matty, and Steve Rockwell, decided to grab a 6-pack of beer, go drive around. A few hours later, depending on exactly whose story you want to believe or which one's accurate, but somewhere between probably 2 o'clock in the morning when they left to go riding around and 4:45 in the morning, these three guys supposedly dropped him off at his car, which was parked by the library right around the corner from the Waterworks bar where he supposedly won some money playing poker. And at that point, the story, just kind of goes blank from there, other than these three guys saw him drive off into the midnight hours or the dark hours of the morning, and nobody's ever seen him again.
Wow. So, there were no girlfriends in other areas or secret lives or anything.
I was gone at the time. I was in the Marine Corps. I was gone. I was out in California. I'd been out there for a while. I think I went back out there in December. So, you're looking at 6, 7 months. I mean, from everybody I've talked to, from other friends of his, I know he had off and on girlfriends, in high school and maybe after college there for a while. But I don't know of any, there's nobody ever said that, yeah, at the time, that he had any girlfriend, anywhere, even at college or anything else. I mean, I think he was more into the party scene, drinking and playing cards and running around with the guys and just, doing those type of things.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that was what you did in the 80s. You drove around, you drank your beer, road cruising,
Yep.
hanging
Yeah, I
out.
mean that's what a lot of the younger people don't understand. I've had a lot of people question, well, what was he doing out till 4 a.m, on a Saturday night? Or, on a Saturday night, I'm like, we all did that. Especially if you was over the age of 18 and mom and dad really didn't or couldn't tell you what to do anymore. You pretty much rode around, drank beer, cruised the gravel roads, or went to parties and
my
keg
husband and
parties
I
out at
both
the
did
lake
that.
and was out all night.
Yeah, we weren't even legal and we were doing that. So
well, yeah, I ain't gonna say, I was on probation as a underage drinking once. So yeah, I mean, we all done it,
right.
And then he ended up to be a police sergeant. Go figure.
Oh yeah, I heard a lot of it when I worked in Albia for 9 years. Believe me, I heard a lot of people that I knew over the years. Well, I remember when you did this or you did that. And I'm like, yeah, most people would have voted me to be inmate 101 rather than a police officer. So
my husband grew up in a really, really small town, and they were road cruising, driving the strip, and we're talking the strip is like one light till one light's the end of town. It's this little bit, they have a Dairy Queen and little bitty town, and they were drinking and they got stopped. We've known the cop all of their lives. I mean, he's passed away now, but he was old time family friend, and he stopped them and said, guys, you can't be doing this. You got to get rid of the beer.
Oh,
so they had to pour the beer out, and he's like, what are you doing? Like, pouring the beer out. He's like, drink it and get rid of it. Don't throw it away.
Yeah, exactly. That was pretty common practice when we were kids was, they'd catch you drinking and either send you home or make you dump it out. I mean, just that was the way it was back then.
Different time, a way different time. It was a different time. So, but he had never taken off before or anything like that, right?
No, I mean, that was, he was, he was pretty much, I guess, what I would call kind of a homebody for the most part, because I think that's why he chose to go to school where he did down at Northeast Missouri State. It was one of them deals where, he could come home on the weekends, flop at home on the weekends. Mom would, cook the meals and he'd have everything made. And then when he wanted to, when college was going on, boom, he was off back to college again, so he was, and he got, a lot of his friends went to college down at Northeast Missouri State. In fact, his best friend, Denny Hollenrink, was him. They were roommates for a while. They'd been best friends for a long time through high school. And then they was roommates at college. So he kind of had the best of both worlds as far as that goes. I mean, he was away from home, but not too far away from home.
Close enough to mama.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no doubt. And I was just the opposite. I was like, I joined the Marine Corps and I wanted to get, as far as away as I could, just because I thought I knew better and could, do whatever I wanted to, but you find out different real quick.
No, there's things that we want away as fast as we can, and then realize, man, why do I want to grow up?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, in Harry's case, I mean, I joined the Marine Corps before him, which sounds kind of funny because he was older than me, but he was working. I know he worked at Kness Mousetrap Factory here for a while. At the time that he came up missing, I believe he's painting houses with Steve Matty, doing those type of things. I ended up joining the Marine Corps my senior year in high school, and I had to wait until I graduated before I could go to boot camp. So once I had joined the Marine Corps, then I think the recruiter coming in and out of our house got to talking to him a little bit, and then he realized that he could be a reservist and use going in the Marine Corps to help pay for his college. So, he was smart in that way. I think that's how he ended up, but he ended up going to boot camp before me because he was, I had to wait until I graduated high school. So, he went into Marine Corps boot camp, came home and went off to college. And, I mean, he was smart in that way that, he was taking advantage of it. That seemed like.
Right. Well, thank you for your service, by the way. My husband's a veteran as well. And so
thank you. That's awesome.
That's always a big thing. So, did he have any beefs with anybody? Is there any rumors of anything that way?
No. I mean, anybody, I mean, Allison, she probably knows from hearing people talk around town or different things. I don't know him to ever have a problem with anybody. I
Nope.
mean, he got along with everybody, hung out with everybody. I mean, um, yeah, he liked to drink and have fun, but he was kind of a class clown type of guy. I mean, um, yeah, I don't. The only thing that catches me as strange is I know at one point at college he was having problems. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, it's in the records, and he got down there, got to drinking too much and partying too much, and his grades started going to crap and stuff like that. But at one point, I know down there, him and his best friend Denny Hallrenk, they for some reason decided that they didn't need to be roommates anymore. And I've talked to Denny. He says it was because they was partying too much and staying up too late and not getting their stuff done that they decided to kind of separate and go their own way down there. But I mean, as far as other disagreements or anything with anybody, I don't know of any. And in
This place so
37 years,
bad?
37 years, I've never had somebody even bring up that he had a problem with somebody.
That's what makes
Nobody.
this very baffling for me is that usually there's a fight or there was a girl issue or drug selling or something, but we're not seeing that here anywhere.
Well, and that's probably been the hardest part with the whole thing is, I mean, you can look back and say, was this, a botched investigation from the start? Was there a cover up? I mean, there's so many things you can look at, and believe me, I play with all of them in my head all the time and over the years. Um, the sad part about it is, in the 80s, when you're 21 years old and all of a sudden you don't show up at home, nobody thinks nothing of it.
Right.
I mean, I'll be honest, I was that way. When my mom got a hold of me, I was like, oh, don't worry about it. He didn't make it home last night. He drank too much. He's, passed out at the friends or, he met some gal and he's off hanging out with her or whatever, and I thought, no big deal. But then 4 or 5 days later, when they're getting a hold of you and saying, okay, we've still not heard nothing, then it kind of changes your mindset at that point. But I think, with law enforcement and everything else, it was just a different time. I don't think they took it serious like they do nowadays. I mean, being in law enforcement myself, I know now, in my 21 years I've done it, it changed a lot over the years. And I know by the time I was done, you took every one of them serious. It didn't matter if it was, a 5-year-old or a 50-year-old. You went through the same process to try to go through a process elimination to see where they're at and what happened and whether you can locate them. And I think back then they just didn't do
In
that.
the 80s, we didn't have the alert systems that gave us any kind of alert of anybody missing. We didn't have, I don't think at that point we even had the laws for missing for 24 hours before you can report somebody missing. I don't even think that was in play in that
Right.
time.
Yeah, I mean, it's changed so much. I mean, and I think that's kind of where it started. I mean, my mom, immediately got worried because it just wasn't like him. I mean, my wife just started. She started her phone on YouTube, so I'm hearing myself over there. It's like, what? Yeah. But so like I said, it was a whole different time. It was a deal where, they didn't look at it the same way, and a lot of people say, well, they failed to do their job. They failed to do this. No, they did their, I think initially they did their job the way they knew how then.
Right.
What probably
your smaller police forces don't have the extra training your bigger ones are going to have to look at things differently. A lot of these small town cases I see, I wish early on they would call in bigger departments or agencies to help.
And that's probably where it concerns me the most. When you look at the police side of it, why in a week, why in a month, why in 6 months wasn't there more done then? I mean, then it became obvious that there's definitely an issue. And even if it's just an issue of like a few people want to say of him just leaving, I'm tired of everything, I'm leaving. There's a lot of ways to track that down too.
Yeah.
I mean, and there always was. I mean, they always had the standard stuff in place as far as, there was always a missing person. I mean, from day one, his car, him, everything was listed as a missing person, to where if any law enforcement or anything, came across him or the vehicle, you'd be notified right away, so.
A huge red flag for me is that the car's never been found. So that to me is a huge red flag.
Right. Oh, exactly. I mean, that's probably the one thing that pushed me past the part of thinking that, okay, initially when I came home, because I came home 5 to 7 days, right around that, after he'd come up missing, and started looking for him, and at first I was thinking, just like me, my friends, other people that I talked to, everybody was thinking, we're going to find him. He's going to wreck his car, be in a ditch somewhere, car all piled up, and when you go out and spend, I was home, I think 55 days total, and you find nothing and you really hear nothing. Then you start to think other ways, and I mean, there was other things that started me thinking, that something weird's going on, that this ain't what it seems to be, I mean, just, like Jeff Adler. I was friends with Jeff, he was in between grades like of me and Harry. We spent summers in town at a friend's house, playing basketball and things like that. So I was friends with him, back then too, at one point. And to this day, the guy's never spoke to me, ever. He's not said one word to me, never spoke to my family. The only people he's talked to is, when law enforcement or Denny Carr, the ex-sheriff, and then private investigator reached out to him, he did talk to them and made some statements. But I mean, and the guy never even spoke to me, so I mean, and I know when I was back, I'll be honest, I was frustrated. I was young and dumb, a Marine that thought I was tough and going to find some answers, and I made it known that I was looking for him, at different times, that I wanted to talk to him. And every time I went in one place, I went in the front door, he'd go out the back door, so.
Oh, wow.
It was, those things started to add up, but you never could pinpoint anything, because the only story that had really ever been told at that time was, hey, we dropped him off and never seen him again.
Allison, are we going to have to do the game where every time you kick off, we do a shot?
I get to messing. Yeah, I did it. I kicked myself off again. Jeez.
Start hitting buttons. That's what happened.
I guess. Yes. My goodness.
So, I mean, that's where that was, I mean, and then you went, it was probably, God, at least 10 years or better before any other even remote story, surfaced, I mean, and it was back to the same thing, of who do you talk to, I mean, who do you go out and reach out to? Because, it's just like even now, 37 years later, I mean, I know different, from some of the information that's been put out and that I put out as far as timelines and who saw Harry that night and who talked to Harry that night. It just still amazes me that most of those people absolutely will not say much of anything other than they saw him.
That is very strange.
Yeah.
Very.
Ex-girl, there was a party the night that had been that night at what was at one time his ex-girlfriend, and I don't know if they was together on again, off again, but there was an ex-girlfriend that had a party that night. I've since talked to her. She remembers the party, remembers Harry being there, and says, can't remember if he was with somebody or by himself. And I think he was there 20, 30 minutes. And then I'm asking, okay, well, who else was there? Who all else was at this party? So I can talk to some of them people to see if, maybe they talked to Harry or, just trying to piece everything together from the night. I don't remember. You remember Harry being there. You remember how long he was there, but you don't remember one other person at this party you had that night. Nope.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just like, it's just those kind of things. It baffles, it just baffles you at that night.
That is very odd. That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
None of this makes any sense.
It's over the years, it's story after story and trying to piece things together. And then, then you go, like I say, I spent 21 years as a police officer, and I never wanted to get involved in looking for Harry. Other than, of course, if people come to me and I'd ask people at different times, if they'd heard anything or what they know and anything that I ever found out, I always passed on to either like the sheriff or the chief of police, because I didn't want to ever get accused of using my, authority and overstepping the lines and get myself in trouble that way. So I always put it to somebody else to look into. And then, of course, you'd always get we checked it out. This is nothing. Or we checked that out and this is not, it's nothing. And then, when at one point, just like even recently, getting the case file that they provided me when I requested it, you find out that nobody has ever followed up with anything. Literally the worst investigative file of anything I've ever seen in 21 years of being a cop. And it just blows my mind,
So there was never follow-ups on alibis or anything?
No, absolutely not.
Wow.
As far as I know at this particular point, just like you guys discussed the other night, 37 years later, the three individuals that were last with my brother have all been, they were all, I don't know if you call it re-interviewed or kind of re-interviewed or re-questioned by Denny Carr as a private investigator, that was following up on things. But I don't think any one of those three has ever had to, or been asked by law enforcement to sit down and provide a interview of what they do know, ever.
Isn't that crazy?
It's like the case file. It's a bunch of handwritten notes. The reports that are in there are Denny Carr's, that was a private investigator that was working with my family at the time.
So the private investigator has basically done the case.
Yeah, what has been done, he done it. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's just because he was sheriff at the time when Harry came up missing. And then a few years later, he was no longer sheriff, moved on to Des Moines. He went to a state agency, I think with like the Board of Health or something. I'm not exactly positive, but at the same time, he continued to practice as a private investigator and tried to look into things, or at least it appears that he did. But law enforcement,
There's another case that I'm looking at as a wrongful conviction case, and I'm digging into it to see if it really falls in that, because it's borderline. It is borderline. But one of the key things for me on that case is one of the witnesses that are, well, not really a witness, but he was living at the home of the people that were killed, wasn't there that night, went somewhere else to stay and do his laundry. Makes no sense. That's kind of suspicious. And he had an alibi. So the private investigator that they've hired for this case, and it's a death penalty case here in Texas, they went to the alibi and asked them if they had seen him that morning, like he claims, and he was like, I didn't see him at all. And they're like, did the police ever come and get your statement on this? And they're like, no one's ever talked to me about this case, ever.
Well, and the same thing in Harry's case. There's, I know there was mention made of Darwin Thomas the other night. talking about how Harry had stopped and wanted him to, go. Really, Darwin's story is Darwin come out of his apartment, was getting ready to go to work. He knew exactly what time it was when he saw Harry. He said, I was dressed to go to work. I worked out at the hospital. He said, Harry stopped, had a cooler full of beer in the back seat of his car and said, hey, Darwin, hop in. Let's go. Let's just, take the night off. Let's just go road cruising and drink beer. Darwin said, we'd done it, multiple times before. He said, but that night, he said, I told him no because I was worried about my job. He said, so I told him I couldn't do it, and he said, Harry was in a good mood, had a bunch of beer, and Darwin went on to work, and then of course never saw Harry again, which Darwin just is tore up over. But and that got back to me at some point. So I got a hold of Darwin and I said, Darwin, have you ever talked to law enforcement? And he said, no. And I said, well, why? And he said, because nobody ever asked me. He said, nobody ever came to me and asked me if I knew anything. And it's like, oh no, and as far as I know now, I mean, I've passed that on to law enforcement, but I still don't think anybody has ever went and talked to Darwin Tom. I mean,
what the hell?
Simple things like that. It's like, I don't get it. That, that's the part of it. I mean, I'm dealing with
that's like police 101. I don't understand it.
It's kind of it's a real difficult situation for me on the law enforcement side because the guy that is now sheriff, my wife started working at the law center as a 911 dispatcher and worked with Dan Johnson, that's the sheriff. Well, at that time, I was like, this seems to be kind of interesting. I started going in and doing some ride-alongs with Dan Johnson, and when he was a city officer, and that's what got me interested in law enforcement. I'm like, dang, it's kind of nice to be on this side of it instead of the other side, and he talked me into to being to applying, and we were really good. We've been really good friends for a long time. So that's what makes it difficult dealing with them is, there's still there's still some friendship there, but it's also, you want them to do their job, and right. It's like, and then when you've done the job for 21 years and you see what you don't think is being done, it's hard to, figure out where do you push, where do you not push, because it's kind of a double-edged sword. I was there, I worked that job. I mean, I understand in a small town like this, I think they got 5 deputies, maybe 6, to that things, they're not necessarily extremely busy. I know that, but they do have things they got to do and other stuff they have to do. So it's not like they can dedicate, 24/7, to Harry's case.
Right. They're not like
on the other side, it don't seem like they're doing what they can do.
Like places like Chicago and New York and Houston, they have departments that deal with cold cases or missing cases or whatever. They don't have just, like you said, a handful of officers that take care of everything from the jaywalking to the murders. They don't have, they're in everything. And so it can things do fall through the cracks because they just don't have the manpower.
Right.
They also sometimes don't have the training.
And it's just like to clarify on some of what was said the other night. That's one of the things there that, has frustrated me all along because one of my big suspicions, there's a couple 3 main stories that I focused on that I believe any one of them could be true. You just don't know. And one of them is, involves Mike Stalker and the bar and the card game, and possibly Harry and his car ending up at Mike Stalker's parents' residence, and being, covered up out there. Well, there's several different things that have pointed in that direction. And, and I kept trying to push the sheriff to search the property. And at one point, he did say, well, I don't know that there's enough at this point, until we get something more substantial, we're looking at other things first. So at that point, I went and talked to Cade Comstock, which is Mike Stalker's nephew that owns that property. And I got in contact with him. I said, hey, Cade, I know you had nothing to do with this. I'm not, I'm just going off of what I've been told over the years about your uncle, blah, 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 and all that stuff. I would like to see law enforcement search that property. And I said, would you be willing to sit down with me and law enforcement and discuss it? Well, he was good kid, good guy. He come right up to the law center. We sat down, we discussed it. We talked about searching it. They were making a plan to search it. And now, I'd been told, that it was going to happen sometime in October, maybe November. That's part of why I've sat back and said, okay, I got to give them the opportunity to do their thing. Now we're the 1st of December and I've heard nothing. I mean, the sheriff has kind of, cut off communication with me. He don't volunteer to tell me anything.
Right.
We've been kind of going back and forth up until a couple months ago, because one of the biggest things that I wanted them to do is I wanted them to declare that the sheriff's department, the Monroe County Sheriff's Department and the county attorney would provide immunity to somebody that would come forward with information, regarding Harry. And I told him, I said, my family knows, I know, Harry's not coming back. We're pretty sure that something happened, so the big thing to me is if I could get somebody that was there, like I told him, I said, I'm not saying provide immunity. If you can prove that, person X killed my brother, yeah, I want them prosecuted, if you can prove that. But if, Joe Blow that stood there and watched this, and has been silent for all these years out of fear or whatever reason, can come forward and know they're not going to get prosecuted, as being part of this crime, I want them to have immunity, because I want to find what happened. I want to find answers. And right now, like I said, we kind of got into it, and because first of all, the sheriff didn't think it was his place to make that decision. He put it on the county attorney. The county attorney put it back to the sheriff. Nobody could ever make a decision. I finally told him, I said, hey, this is my family's point of view. You guys need to make a decision, because I said, I want to make it known public one way or the other that either you're willing to work with me or you're not willing to work with me. And from that point on, I really haven't heard anything out of them.
Oh, wow.
I don't know where they stand. I decided at that point I would give them the, couple months to, let's see if something moves forward. Let's see where things go. If I just sit back, let you guys supposedly do your thing, don't, you're not acting off of pressure from me or anything else. And so far I've seen nothing, so
like what just myself said.
Now
they give immunity all the time for less.
Sure. I've worked,
and usually the two departments work together to do that. So they could both sit there and say, what do you think? Should we offer this? Let's do it. And they could make a plan.
Right. And I don't get even the responses that I'm getting sometimes, because the county attorney, like here, I know where you're in Texas, right?
Yes.
So I'm not sure if it's the same down there, but like here, when I was in Ottumwa and we had a major, say a homicide case or any kind of major sex abuse, major cases, you gathered information, you went to the county attorney, made some decisions. He decided, okay, maybe you need to do this, or this, and guided how the investigation should kind of go.
Right.
And here, the response when I hit up the county attorney about his involvement in this case, the only answer I got from John Papst, the county attorney, was, I'm just here for legal advice. If the sheriff needs legal advice, I'll answer his questions.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's not the way I've seen it work anywhere else. Usually most people don't understand, like in Iowa, the county attorney of a county is the senior law enforcement official in the county. He makes all the decisions. He can override what the sheriff, an elected official, the sheriff can do. He's the main guy when it comes to decision making. He decides whether charges are filed, not filed, those type of things. So I just, right now, That's the frustration I'm dealing with right now, and trying to figure out a way to deal with some of that because, somebody's got to do something. Sitting idle, not saying a word, or, if you are doing something, I do think that, as a family member, I deserve some update of, at least here, yeah, we're making progress or we're doing something, not just never saying a word.
Right. Yeah. At this late in the game, at the very least, finding him and getting an answer of what happened.
Right.
And
I know
somebody pay for it, but in the beginning, we really just need Harry.
Right. And that's, I've come to that conclusion, and I think my family has, for the most part. I know that we may never find the answer, but I think we can find Harry.
Right.
I think we can find the car and him somewhere. They didn't just disappear. Yeah, you may not know the details of what happened that night or whatever took place, but I still think you can find Harry, and that's, I'm not going to stop doing that until I'm not here no more, I guess. So.
Yeah, Angela Ferris says family needs to be updated. You're exactly right. And then Just Myself said, if the county attorney doesn't want to do it or the state won't take over, nothing will go forward. It's so sad.
It is. I mean, you're not only pounding your head against the wall fighting 37 years, and a community of silence. It's almost like, law enforcement is going to thinks they're going to do the same thing. We're going to stand silent too,
Yeah, Just Myself said
I know they've talked to some people. I know they've talked to a couple people. There's been a couple people that I've directed them and said, hey, you need to go in and talk to the sheriff, or you need to go in, and talk to the deputy that's dealing with this. And I know that they have, but I just don't know if any of it's being taken serious, or, I don't know if it's a case of ego, that I'm going to do things my way and I don't care. It's got to give at some point, I mean, it's just like, I know from listening to the last one the other night, one of the big topics of conversation there was the story put out by Jim Wilson. I've sat and talked to Jim, and I stay in communication with Jim. I talk to him quite a bit. What a lot of people don't realize is he's not the only one who's told the story, or at least a version of that story.
Yeah.
I've talked to
the ones that weren't here last week or the week before. Can you refresh us on that story? There was a few in chat that weren't here then.
Well, like I say, the story that he gives is he was at the trailer park that sometime the next morning on which would have been July 1st. That next morning, he was at the trailer park with his brother, maybe some other people there. At some point, he says he was standing around by a trailer, maybe witnessed or heard a couple gunshots, witnessed maybe rolling up a carpet, and then Richard and them taking it back to an area back along a tree line, and digging a hole, burning it, and burying it. He was 7 years old at the time. So that's kind of the gist of his story for the most part. The other person I've talked to, which, like I say, at this point, I'm not going to name just for
right.
What also tells a version of that story that started way before Jim's version of the story. A period of time just previous to what Jim's story is. And that person also tells me, I'll be honest, that maybe Jim's story is not exactly true. So, it's back to that whole, how do you sort out what's true, what's not true? I know law enforcement has been out there with Jim. I know they've ran cadaver dog out there. They've had what they thought was maybe an indication on an area out there, but they wanted to wait. Just like I say, we're back to the waiting game. That was back in September, I believe it was, that they talked to me about that. They was going to wait for the frost. First, it was waiting for the hayfield to be cut. Then they was waiting for the frost, and then, and then they were going to get the.
And does that have anything to do with it? The frost? What would the frost have to do with it?
Well, some of it is just killing off the vegetation, so it's easier for a dog to actually. It's not necessarily, from what I was a canine handler of a narcotic dog. I had a narcotic dog for 5 years that I used, and their sense of smell is just absolutely amazing. I mean, so I think the whole thing with the frost part of it is the vegetation with it being hayfield, higher grass area along the tree lines and different stuff like that, is they wanted for the frost to come along to kill off that vegetation, so it's easier for the dogs to maneuver. It's not so much a thing of odor. They're not thinking that, okay, the frost is gonna kill off the odor things out there, so that maybe he would smell a dead body out there. It's more of just a maneuvering type of thing, is the way I understood it. I don't believe, I from anybody I've ever talked to, and some people I have talked to about cadaver dogs, I don't think that really matters. Maybe to a handler it might. I don't know. I've never ran a cadaver dog like that where you're working in a great big field area, type of thing. So maybe it makes a difference there. But
I'm a dog person, and working dogs like that. I have 2 German Shepherds. One is a working German Shepherd, or could be. And when you do scent work, I have a friend that does scent training.
Yeah,
those dogs are amazing, and they learn some really cool things on how to do their job. Really? And it's going to have to be a special cadaver dog because of how long it's been.
They say, and it all depends on who you talk to, because, nowadays with all the, I hate to say this, but there's a lot of fly-by-night dog trainers out there, I think, too.
Yes.
They say they train them and sell them off to people, or even police departments, saying they're drug dogs. Well, it's just like me. As a dog handler for 5 years, and I know a lot about dogs, and I know a lot about how my dog worked. And how to do different things and stuff, but I'm not a dog trainer. There's a lot of guys that spend a little time as a dog handler and then think they're a dog trainer. So from some of the people I've talked to, they say a cadaver dog can find, if that dead body is there, they will always smell that dead body no matter what.
There's a specific smell it leaves in the dirt.
Right. Yep, exactly. And a lot of people don't understand how a dog's nose works. They store scents, and people, it's like I used to explain to little kids with my drug dog. They're like, well, how do they know what drugs are? I said, it's because their nose is so powerful that, you would explain it simple, that if me or you walked into a room and say my wife's cooking pizza, I smell pizza. I might not know what kind it is or anything else. I smell pizza. I know what that smell is. Well, to a dog, they literally can break down every single ingredient.
They've got the flour, they've got the tomato, they've got the onion, they've got the seasonings. It's 9 million little things that they're picking up. It's amazing work. It really, really is.
Yeah.
So let's see, we have a question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Mark, just myself, she lives in Iowa, and she said that she's going through pretty much the same thing, different scenario, but the county attorney isn't doing anything with her thing too. And she says, never go silent, Mark.
Oh, yeah.
Never give up. And then Lee says, keep the pressure on.
Yeah. Allison, right now, I got some stuff going on I had to sort out but even in general for the last 2 months, I did choose to go somewhat silent, other than promoting, like we did the signs and the different things like that, and all the stuff, that you guys have helped with there at Top Notch with signs and t-shirts and everything else. I was still doing that, but I still went silent on purpose for a bit, just to see what happens. I mean, even you'd be surprised with social media nowadays, just like doing this podcast and doing the different things like that. Even when I stood silent for a while, all of a sudden it took about a week, and then everybody started being like, okay, what's going on? And people reaching out with even a little bit more information about this or that, or, hey, I want to talk to you again, and those kind of things. So I mean, yeah, am I ever going to go completely silent? No. And to be honest with you right now, I'm trying to figure out a game plan to be really loud and obnoxious without.
Well, that's what there's people. That's just it, Mark. If we keep getting Harry's story out there, I'm hoping somebody sees the story and gives advice.
Right.
Amanda Lee was telling me that there was a guy that came onto a podcast that it was a cold case. I mean, I think 20 or 30-year-old cold case. And a guy in the comments ended up solving that case.
Sure.
And it can happen. People I mean,
every time we put out something more, something pops up. And some of it might not be, useful. Some of it might not, is. But it's just a matter of, like you said, you don't know when you're going to get to that one person that says, hey, wait a minute. I mean, because I've had that happen. I mean, throughout, setting up, getting this web page going and getting everything going, or this Facebook group and all this stuff. I mean, I've had people reach out to me and say, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, why didn't you tell me that before? And they're like, well, I thought you knew. And it's like, no, I mean, you got to remember 37 years ago, you couldn't just reach out and talk to people like you can now.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I have a video from a few months ago that I did with an investigator he's an author, and he's on all these different shows, and he is working a case right now that's 52 years old. It's a murder of a 12-year-old little girl. And he is obsessed. He found the case by accident and became obsessed with it. And he's like, it's never too late. Never too late. He's like, because you never know when you talk about a case and then somebody's talking about that case to somebody else. And then they go, oh, wait, I remember seeing somebody with a blue hat. And that blue hat comment is going to be the kicker for the case that solves it. Well, so you just never know.
And it's just like now, I mean, there's certain things that I keep to myself that I don't put out there. I mean, just like with the case file, I mean, there's things that are that I've, do I got certain people that I've, gave a copy of the information I got from law enforcement to look at, to help me, maybe see something that I haven't seen or question something I haven't quite sure. But have I gave it all out to everybody? No, and even with law enforcement, that's, another one of the things that just really drives me crazy on the law enforcement side. I put in for a Freedom of Information Act back in December of last year, right before they decided to make it an open investigation. They provided me with the Freedom of Information. I requested the entire file. And they knew that back in 1996, when I started as an officer in Albia, the sheriff at the time gave me a copy of the file. He said, I'm not gonna hide it from you in this building. It's a missing persons case. We have no reason to be, to open it up or anything like that and change it to anything else. He said, I want you to look at it. He said, I want you to see if there was something that maybe was missed, that maybe would trigger us to be able to do something and find an answer. So I made a copy of it, made a copy of the complete file, gave it back to the sheriff, said, thank you. I've had it ever since. Well, I did this Freedom of Information request, and I asked for everything and some things specific because I knew they were in that file because I've already got a copy of it. What kind of has me perturbed and I've asked about it is the fact that when I did the Freedom of Information Act, I understand under the law, under Chapter 22 in Iowa, they can't give you Social Security numbers, those type of things. They can't give you law enforcement communication, like communication back and forth on them, but they can give you they're supposed to give you everything else. Well, when I got the file and went through it, I sat down page by page and compared it to what I have. And I probably have 30, 40 more pages of information that they didn't include. And I even brought that to the sheriff's attention and said, hey, I think I've got more than, if you guys are supposedly, opening this up as a criminal investigation, you might need the whole file, or somebody's lost some of the file, or I don't know. But I have more information than you guys have.
Wow.
And he's like, well, I don't know. It was all a mess in a box, and there were multiple copies of things, and blah, 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 blah. But okay. And never heard it. Nobody's ever come to me and said, hey, can we sit down and compare these two and see what we're missing? Or and like I said, or did you choose not to give me some of it? And didn't realize I had the entire file. So
this comment, boom.
Yeah.
That just, holy crap.
I mean, it's just one thing, that's the thing. It's just one thing after another, and I just can't fathom, I'll be honest. And I know I'm throwing the sheriff under the bus, but like I said, I'm going to start getting a little bit loud and obnoxious.
You need to start
about things, but here recently I asked him specifically. I said, why did you open the case back up? I said, why did you change it from a missing person case to a criminal investigation? I wanted to say a murder case, and they wouldn't let me say that, but they would allow me to say criminal investigation. So I said, okay, why did you open it back up? I've never got a response. And I guess my theory is this: why did you open it back up? I mean, for you to change this from a missing person case to what you feel is a criminal investigation, I would think you have some kind of substantial evidence to move forward on that you think is criminal.
Right.
But I've never got an answer to that.
Wow.
Is that so they don't have to say anything?
I have my theories. I know how law enforcement works, and I've seen it work that way before. I mean, I hate to say it, but I've seen it work that way before. As long as a case is a criminal investigation, an supposed active investigation, they don't have to tell anybody anything.
Right. That's when everything's closed up, and even asking for files, you won't get it.
Yeah.
They just won't give it to you. So do you all, because just myself had asked a while ago, is there a suspicion that drugs could be involved with anybody that's
there definitely is. There definitely is. I mean, you get down to the three guys that were last with Harry. I think at the time, like one of them now is a hardcore, full-blown drug addict, in my opinion.
Mark, is that the one that you arrested?
Yeah.
And what did he say to you that night that you arrested him?
Oh, he told me to my face that he knew exactly what happened to Harry, but he would never tell me.
I mean, can you believe it, you guys? Could you imagine?
And how do you respect your badge at that moment and not beat the crap out of somebody?
Oh,
that's what I said.
You want to, I mean, you absolutely.
Get in the back of your head going, remember the badge, remember the badge.
You couldn't imagine how many times arresting somebody in Albia that the common phrase to use with me is, man, it should have been you and not your brother.
Oh,
I mean, that's sad.
I mean, and you the first couple times it really twists you a little bit. You get upset, but then you start realizing that, these people, they're mad, they're upset, they've been caught doing something, and they're just.
But how do you feel? They don't have a brother that's missing either.
Well, exactly. I mean, yeah, they don't understand, the the effect it has on me at the time. Right. Yeah, there's no doubt, but they don't care, because like you said, they don't have a brother missing or a family member missing, I mean, that's the hard part to get across to everybody is, and until you've sitting in the shoes that I'm in, you don't know, you can't fathom, what goes through your head all the time,
right.
I mean, I can say now, especially over the last year, yeah, was there times when it seemed like I did nothing or I felt like I did nothing? Yeah, because you didn't have the social media. Once a year I would maybe get something put in the newspaper somewhere, an article or something like that, but you didn't have the communication that you do in the last, 10 years even, I mean, if that. Um, so it felt like you were doing nothing, and nothing was ever happening and nothing, nobody else cared because it wasn't their family member, and then on top of that, I'm a firm believer, and I'd argue this with anybody. Um, I hate to say, but cold cases, missing person cases, whether it be, an unsolved murder or just a missing persons case, 90% of what gets done with those cases depends on your status in society.
Yes, it
I
does.
agree.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're, and I hate to throw up a name, but like around, if you're a Johnny Gosh and a kid, and your mom and dad maybe have money, you get all the attention in the world.
Mm-hmm.
If you're an adult and your name's, Milligan that nobody really knows, and you're not, you're just, average Joe Blow, you don't get no attention. Or if, you take the poor kid from Centerville around here, Ty, you know,
Nothing
yeah,
was
gets
done.
absolutely no attention because, as far as, as society looks at it, as who was he? He was nothing,
And guess
I mean,
what Mark did? He wanted all the signs that were made for Harry. He wanted one of those signs to have Ty's name on it because he said that he didn't want people to quit talking about that boy too.
And I ain't gonna lie, I get information all the time on, there's more than just like here in our community, Tim Ernie case that was unsolved. You got the missing person out of Blakesburg. Geez, I'm losing my
Yeah, I know who you're
train of
talking
thought right
about.
now. That's been missing for a long time. So, I ain't gonna say that there ain't been bits and pieces of information that comes to me that once I start sorting them out, I figure out, wait a minute, you're probably not talking about Harry, but you could be talking about this person, I've passed that on, to law enforcement and people at different times. So, it's all about keeping it all alive and people talking because you just don't know what's going to pop up next. But I still firmly believe, in the community of Albia, and this is not slamming people of Albia because they've been absolutely great to me with helping. But, in some cases, I look at it, if Harry's name would have been different, it would have got a lot more attention back in 1984.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that Gabby Petito's family have said, that it shouldn't be just their daughter everybody's looking for, when they were looking for Gabby.
Sure.
And like, there's others out there. And on Twitter, he is constantly sharing missing person profiles and things like that.
And that's me. I have another Facebook group I've had for a long time. I haven't been as active in it here just recently, but I mean, I got one that I set up a long time ago called Iowa Gone But Not Forgotten. That's just for that. That
I never knew that, Mark. I didn't know
missing
that.
person that I've seen in this area, surrounding area, or whatever that pops up on Facebook or whatever, or I see an article on somewhere, I would go in and share on that page. Just to try to get somebody to reach out and say, oh, I mean, I know something about this, so yeah, it's sad. I mean, and that's part of the problem, like with here and Iowa, especially, at one point Iowa got funding and set up a cold case unit, and they had them for maybe 2 years or so. And then all of a sudden the funding went away when you change the people in power, the money goes away, and we still don't have a cold case unit in the state of Iowa. And the DCI agents that we do have, people don't realize there's, I don't know how many there are. I bet there's not a dozen of them, really, that cover the entire state of Iowa. I mean, so, every time there's a homicide, just like, we had recently, I know they're investigating up in Des Moines some shooting going on up there and different things. these guys get tied up going and doing stuff that's happening right now, and all the cold case stuff just falls by the wayside.
Yeah, just myself seems pretty smart. She has a lot to say on here. Brandy, do you want to read? Go back.
Which one?
She just her name is Just Myself. She's the one here from Iowa.
Right. Which comment do you want me to highlight, babe?
Well, I mean, she's got a lot of them. If you could just read them to Mark. So
yeah, I see the one there you just put up with John Thorpe. I've talked to John. I sat down with him probably over a year ago or so when he was first pushing the legislation. The guy's got great ideas, great things. I know hopefully this next session they'll get it through. He talked to me quite a bit, and he also worked pretty closely with Jolene Messer here in Ottumwa, their family, because I know Aaron McConnell, deputy out of Wabalo County, got some information and then worked I think it's 10, 11-year-old cold case on their son actually being burned up in a house. What they was initially was just a house fire, and they actually ended up charging 2 guys with arson, and murder for, So I mean, he's done a lot, and I think there's a lot in motion out there right now to try to get that going. But it's something they got to do because, I think, and like I say, not to necessarily keep bashing law enforcement, and it's not really a bash, but I think, when you take small town politics in an old case like this, it's hard to get, an elected official, a sheriff's department, to want to go out and do things because that's their voters. That's who voted them in. So I don't know if when this gets down to the end, who am I pushing buttons with? Who am I not? So they need outside involvement to come into some of these situations, just like I think in Harry's situation, needs to be completely outside people that don't care who they're talking to.
Yeah, small town law enforcement is totally different than big city because it is who you know.
Right, it is.
Well, everybody knows everybody. Right. They either know them or they're related to them.
And most of the time, let's say the high possibility that the person responsible for Harry's murder, I'm going to say he's murdered because otherwise he would be here. It's a highly possibility that some bigwig goes to church with their family or him, or sit across the table from them at Thanksgiving. You know what I mean?
It might be putting thousands of dollars into their election fund.
Right. Nobody wants to rock the boat, and sometimes doing what's right isn't the high priority. And that's sad. Just myself, she said, yes, Mark, stay in touch with JT as much as possible. You can speak in front of the Senate or the House.
I'd love to.
Well,
I'd love to voice my opinion on,
and we're going to
just cold cases in general. I mean, it needs, I know so much, I know more information on a couple other cold cases and stuff, and it's just sad the attention, or the lack of attention that they get, and then just, the communication back and forth is horrible, and the question is, when you're a family member like me, I know, I know law enforcement fairly well, but you also don't know who you can reach out to, you don't know, you can't, it's hard to find answers. I mean, I've questioned attorneys and put questions out there to different people on, okay, how do I go about getting a case even, okay, say I think, if it was my opinion that law enforcement here is not doing their job, and law enforcement at the time that Harry came up missing was corrupt, and that is somewhat, bled into this system for years. How do I get an investigation taken out of this jurisdiction and say, okay, this jurisdiction, 4 counties away, or this person 3 or 4 counties away is going to now do this investigation because they don't have any ties, or who do you look into? Who do you get to investigate law enforcement.
Right.
Because I mean, you guys talked about it in the last one about Popcorn Larry Jones. Larry, has a very, if you look at him, I guess the way I look at it is if you look at it on paper, he's got an outstanding reputation. He's a retired police officer. He's retired out of the Army. Most people would take it on face value as, hey, this is a good guy. Based on information that I've been told, I don't think that, but getting somebody to look into some of that stuff, it's hard. I was
anybody
there.
I've ever talked to.
Cops don't want to turn on cops.
Right.
They face enough crap from the outside world. Is what you look at it. That you don't want to look at it from the inside.
There are enough bad cops out there making it bad for you already that you don't need to attack each other.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Even when you're a good cop and you think you're doing everything right and everything else, you're still just paranoid.
Right.
I mean, I was there. It's like, shit, you don't know who to trust. I mean, that's the life of being a cop. That's why I don't have very many friends. You learn not to trust people, because little old ladies will lie to you about speeding, so
they're the worst, aren't they?
What you do, you stop some little old lady going 40 and a 20, and she's trying to tell you the accelerator's stuck, and it's like, well, it's sitting here idling just fine at the moment.
I'll be honest with you guys, having a retail store, it's the old people, the little old ladies and the little old men that they're thieves.
Yeah, you never know. But you never know. And the hard part is, is I'm not here to, I have to be, and I'm sure you can probably tell, I've tried to choose my words very close, very
right.
politically correct when I talk, because you also have to look at, you can't go out and just start making accusations and end up in a dang slander suit or defamation of character suit.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, and it doesn't help Harry. In the end, that doesn't help Harry.
And that's the whole thing. I don't want any of it to ever be a knife throwing contest or what, what I'm saying? It's all about finding information and pushing buttons to find information. And most of it is just keeping the story alive and keeping it out there to where, at some point you hit that one person, that knows something that is enough to maybe confront another person and say, hey, wait a minute, you ain't said this for years, or you said this, and now I know something different, using it that way, I mean, it's just, I guess it's what I call police work 101, I mean,
right.
you never want to make accusations or sit down and talk to somebody if you don't know a whole lot more than what they think you know. You have to make them think you know a lot more than what you may know sometimes.
It's just, I've told everybody on here several times, I just feel like we're so close that it's right there in front of us, and we just need a little push to find where he is.
Well, it sounds like getting this property searched is key right now.
Yeah, because Jim we have the excavator, we have all the manpower, we would have so many people helping. It's just being able to do it.
Right, exactly. And I completely, I always try to look at it from both sides. I completely, do I think there's property that needs searched? Is it law enforcement's position that they should be doing those things? I think so. It's all about trying to push the right buttons and getting them to do some of the things that they need to do. I made some promises in a meeting that we had, with the sheriff and property owner and everything else of trying to, I guess, keep things at an even keel, so it's not a 3-ring circus, I guess, because, there's no doubt, just like with the Comstock property with Cade, good guy, great guy,
very nice kid.
He has nothing to do with what happened to Harry or anything, so I don't want to cause, anybody else grief over the situation, but I still want to move forward and do what needs to be done. So, I mean, right now it's, it's a waiting game, and the waiting game on my side of it, like I say, when today hit December 1st, the waiting game's over.
Yes, sir.
Now it's time to sit back a little bit, figure out the next steps I need to take, and start moving and get back to moving forward again. And if I piss somebody off, I really don't care. I mean,
well,
it's a process of elimination.
You're going to.
Well, I'm sure of that.
Yeah, just myself says the FBI can put pressure on law enforcement. I mean, it's just probably trying to get them to.
Right, and it's all back to, to finding the answers, finding the people, just like doing podcasts like this that reach out all over the place. We're
going to be doing a lot more, Mark, and I want you on them if you can. Now that I know that you can actually do this.
Right.
You got right on before I did. I didn't even have to walk you through it. I was impressed
so far.
I was impressed that you could do it, though.
Yeah.
So for those watching, what would be something they could do to help? Besides, let me put up. I have the Venmo.
And it's the Bring Harry Home one?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And then what about the Facebook? I see Angela
dropped the Facebook link.
What are we going to do with the Facebook?
I'll be
decided?
I'll be starting another one real soon.
We'll have another Facebook started, and I'll make sure to share that.
I guess
I will too.
The biggest thing I ask for right now is one, for people to keep keep sharing the story, keep asking the questions. But if you have family members that have experienced things like this, that obviously I have questions about, like I say, legal questions, attorneys, in your family or something, point in my direction. If they want to volunteer to help, it's just like, I know there was discussion about a private investigator at some time. People don't realize, that I think in Harry's account right now, there's roughly around $12,000. I mean, to be honest, I hate to say it, but that wouldn't touch a private investigator's time.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, that would literally, from what I'm finding out, just reaching out and around. Yeah, there are some retired guys and different things out there that maybe get hooked on a case or see a case and say, oh, I want to do this. And they dig into it, free gratis or whatever. But actually, as far as hiring somebody, saying, hey, I got $10,000, could you investigate this, is an insult, because they're making all kinds of money on all kinds of stuff. So, I mean,
but I also know that there's angels among us, and I know there's some good people, good-hearted people, and I just have a feeling that one person is going to say, either somebody else say, I'm a private investigator, I will look into this, or they will donate money to hire. I mean, there's a lot of good people out there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, like I've said before, I have no problems with any of that. It's just got to be, it's got to be, I guess, looked into and figured out, what's the best way to go with things like that. Because, I've also had a lot of people that, just like saying, oh, it's Harry Milligan Reward Fund. I've had several people tell me I'm not giving money to it. I'd love to give money to help find Harry, but I'm not giving money to a reward fund, because the last thing they want to do is see somebody that should have come forward a long time ago come forward and reap any kind of reward for it. They're like,
exactly.
I don't want my money to go to that. So, I mean, there's a lot of other things, I think that, some big steps. We did the T-shirts, the benefit, the little signs, the big signs now. More big signs. I mean, I'd love to, put some more big signs up, and even put, for you that's familiar with it, Allison, put some more pictures of tie up, on the back sides of them down by Centerville, to keep people talking about that, because, all of it is just a matter of people talking and asking questions, and if you hear something that hasn't been told to me, or you don't know if it's been told to me, is letting them people know, get a hold of me, message me. I answer every single message, I mean, and not saying anything bad, but I answer every single message I get on Messenger or by text or whatever. Most of them are all Messenger, but I answer them all, even if they're the most craziest wazoo thing you've ever heard of. I mean, I'm at least going to tell somebody, hey, thank you, and I'll look into it because, yeah, you do get some, I mean, just like in the case file, I mean, there's a one in there about somebody wanted the $500 reward that my dad put out years ago because they seen Harry in a porn in California.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, there's a whole phone interview with a gal that swears up and down she saw him in a porn movie out in California. So I mean, you got to weed through all that stuff, but it's still a matter of just keeping everybody talking, because all it's going to take is one person. I mean, I've had people, even since we started all of this, come up to me and say, I didn't even know about your brother, or I didn't know about him until 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and it's like, really? And they're people that, live in and around Albia or Atumwa, and it's like, how do you not know? You don't think about that part of it.
Yeah, there's people that are seeing signs and said, well, I wondered what that was about. Actually,
right.
I think just myself was one of those, and she don't live very far from
I think some of it, some of my advice to the other families out there is, if one, you got to keep it alive, whether it's signs or something or whatever. And also, you also need to look out and find out what kind of case that law enforcement considers the case, because you can get a lot of information that may help you as a family member. You may see something, or it's just like me going out and doing an FOI and getting the case file. Getting that type of information yourself and looking through it, you may see something that law enforcement, it don't even click with an investigator looking into it because they don't know the people. Something might have been said or done different. So, it's all about using all the resources that you can get to gather all the information.
Brandy, will you read just myself's last 4?
My wife said, explain what FOI is. And I don't know.
Lori.
Go ahead and read them for me. I got a call for quick. I'm going to mute.
What's that?
Okay. I'm going to read just myself's comments. She must kind of be going through this kind of the same thing, but she's like, I know I got to find it. She says, man, I feel you, Mark. Money in pockets happens. I'm reading them all. And then she talks about the FBI. But there was one, Mark, I'd search myself, ask people if you can. They want to shut you up, Mark.
Yeah, you can.
She says you're doing great.
I mean, I appreciate all those, all the comments like that are great. I mean, that's what keeps me moving forward.
There's like a lot of people on here talking.
And I don't know, like in Texas, I don't know what you guys have down there, but like here, when I say FOI, what I mean is it's a Freedom of Information Act.
Yep.
That was several years ago was enacted to where if it's not an open criminal investigation, you can request from law enforcement every piece of that file. I mean, everything that's in it, every interview they've done, everything, so that you can look at it and see what they have done or what they haven't done. And also, like I say, using it, my brother's case file is sitting 10 foot away from me right now, and I still go through it. And I still, to this day, find little bits of things that are like, wait a minute, I didn't see that before, or I didn't quite read that, or I didn't see this name in there before. I mean, there's a lot of different things that, that you've got to take your time and look at. And, the bad part about it is, as a family member, sometimes you get a little bit blinded, with wanting to find an answer so bad that you miss some of the details, I guess. But,
Just myself, it was 1984.
Yeah.
Yeah, defendants in Iowa
I
have.
can't see the comments.
Yeah.
On the
says
right hand,
defendants.
if you're on your phone, it should be, what is it?
Ah, there we go. I found it was the private chat was up. I didn't see the other.
Yeah, just myself says, I want that file.
Well, like
she's
said,
ready to go.
You know, to be honest, I don't know who just myself is. Reach out.
I don't either.
My name, you know.
Yep, you know? I don't either. She actually, we're gonna meet though sometime. She called the store looking for me one day. We just met on here, and I know she has a lot of good advice.
I'll tell you exactly how to do it. You know, I ain't gonna say I've done it for other people. Typed it all. Got you know, it's a formatted thing. It's very easy. I can you give me the right information. I can type it all in there, email it back to you. You take it to your local county attorney, local sheriff, and say, hey, here it is. You know, you got 30 days or whatever. I think it's 30 days they've got to actually provide the information to you. You know, I mean, otherwise they're in violation of the law, and it's very simple. You know, and it's one of them tools that I think is really good because one, it keeps law enforcement in check. If you walk in there with something like that as a family member or whatever, they know you're not going away. They know that you've done some research, you've figured some things out, and you're just not going to go away. You know, and it you know, it gives you the ability to, you know, sometimes you sit back and think, oh, they haven't done that, and they haven't done that, and truthfully, you might find out they've done a lot more than you know. You know, I mean, it just depends. It's like I say, the sad thing is the older the cases are, what I've seen is the less information that you get a lot of times, just because it was a whole different, you know, era of law enforcement. You know.
Well, yeah.
Amanda says it sounds like conspiracy. Sorry, Brandy.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah, this definitely sounds like a conspiracy to me.
Well, you know, and like I said, I mean, I don't know how long we got to talk here tonight, but I could go on for days and explain, you know, some of the things, just like when we're talking about, you know, whether there was corruption back in the day, and you know, when you guys talked about like Larry Jones, do I think Larry Jones ever did anything to my brother? No, absolutely not. Do I believe that he may have been involved in some corruption that went on in the city of Albia? You damn right I do. You know, and I got people that, you know, I've got so many stories and so many things, and you know, some of the people involved kind of in the story with my brother and his disappearance and things that have come up over the years. Some of them names, you know, the Davis name in particularly, you know, the Davises have been well known for years, you know, around here of being the ones moving all the drugs. You know, and you know, to have people get a hold of you that, you know, have no reason to lie to you and say, Mark, I know this for a fact, you know, that there was law enforcement officers involved with these people, you know, covering up what drugs were coming in and out of Albia. You know, like I say, why wouldn't you believe them? Because you have no reason not to, you know.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
But trying to get somebody to look into all that is a whole different story, because I still think, you know, was there a drug nexus to Harry's coming up missing? I believe so. You know, I believe that was part of it. I think it was possibly drugs, money. You know, the story you guys kind of was talking about with the tape case or the tape cassettes or whatever. I mean, that's probably a whole nother issue that we could talk about at some point. But like I say, yeah, I you know, I think that the three guys that were with my brother and my brother, you know, possibly were just getting into that dabbling around. Not, you know, did Harry probably smoke weed? Yeah, I'm sure he did at some point. He smoked weed. You know, did all of them? Yeah, we all did back in the day. You know, even to be a cop, I had to tell them, yep, you know, raise my right hand and say, yeah, back when I was, you know, 17, 18 years old, I smoked weed a few times, you know. I mean, that's what you did back in the 80s, you know. So
that's what they do now. It's very common now. So
yeah, it's even more common now. So you know, was there some of that going on and drinking and you know, like Mike Stalker and the bar and some of that stuff? That's what they were known for. That's what that bar was. It was, you know, it was a heavy duty bar, you know, that dealt in drugs and moved a lot of drugs out of there. You know, I know that for a fact because, like I said, in the course of 37 years of doing this, I've talked to a lot of people that have detailed what was going on there, you know, to me. So, you know, you take Harry maybe winning some money from the bar owner and those type of things, and him being upset, and maybe Harry being and these other guys being a little bit involved in the drug trade that was maybe coming through this bar and everything else. You know, you know, that's all you can think is, you know, that you got bad feelings over money and a guy, you know, some guys that are all involved in the drug thing. And, you know, I think that, you know, things just went south at that point. A guy tried to get his money back and, you know, whatever happened.
Because he was known to get his money back.
Oh yeah. You know, I mean, you know, he left Juke Stalker dead, you know, for dead on the railroad tracks.
Yep.
You know, that's you know, his own daughter, you know, told me that, you know, I mean, his own daughter said, yeah, my mom, and we found him on the railroad tracks, and he told us Mike Stalker is the one that beat the daylights out of him and left him for dead on the railroad tracks. You know, and another guy went, another one of the, you know, tough guys that run in that crowd back then didn't care for that happening to Juke, because Juke was just one of the good old boys that liked to drink and party and play cards. And, you know, Mike Thomas went and, you know, threatened Stalker and got Juke's money back for him. You know, I mean, so, you know, and I've talked to Mike Stalker's best friend for years, you know, and you know, recently talked to him and, you know, and he's like, I've been waiting for this conversation for quite a while, because he said, you know, Mark, he said, it's sad, 37 years. And he said, everybody in this town knows that me and Mike Stalker were the best of friends. He said, there's very little that he done or was involved in that I didn't know about. But he says, he said, I can tell you one thing. He said, do I know if he killed your brother? He said, he told me, he goes, no, I don't know. He said, I asked him twice if he knew anything about what happened to Harry Milligan. And he said, both times that I ever asked him, he changed the conversation immediately. And he said, to tell you the truth, if he said, I'm a guessing man, he said, Mike Stalker killed your brother. He said, I just know him. He said, I knew him, you know, he said, I knew everything about him. You know, he detailed, you know, all kinds of things that these guys were doing back then. You know, I mean, one of the big things is, you know, one of the way the bar and the dope all went through Albia and how they made money was all these guys were going into Missouri, because down in Missouri back in the 80s, you know, we didn't have all the gun laws you got now, and everybody and their brother down there had guns in their trucks all the time. He said they would take a weekend and just go down to Missouri and do nothing but steal guns. And he said then one of the Davises would take the guns to California and sell them. You know, so he, you know, I mean, the guy wasn't, you know, he wasn't shy about telling me what he knew, you know, but he did tell me specifically. He said, you know, did Mike Stalker ever admit to killing Harry? No. But he said, if I was a betting man, by the way he always changed the conversation, he either killed him or he knows who did, you know, so.
A lot can be said about somebody's reaction and behavior during conversations. And,
you know, and he said, he goes, I've been waiting for this conversation for years. And he said, the sad part about it is, he said, it's you coming to me asking me these questions. And he said, I've never yet spoke to law enforcement. He said, you know, all the rumors about Mike. And he said, nobody's ever come and asked me. You know,
wow,
and I think
crazy.
I think there's still a lot of that out there. But, you know, the sad part for me, I mean, granted, with social media and with everything going on, you know, yeah, I can communicate with people and everything a lot better. And I get a lot more information and a lot more opportunities to somewhat talk to people. But some of the people like that you just need to go stand and talk to face to face and see their reactions and see, you know, what they say. It's sometimes hard to do because, you know, I still work 40 hours a week, and you know, I got to do, you know, I got a life that I got to, you know, I got to go on with at the same time. You know, I mean, you can't, you know, there's been times where, you know, I just have to step away for a few days and say, I got to take a breather, you know, because you get so much coming at you at one time, it's hard to sort it all out.
Yeah. By the way, congratulations on the Vikings winning.
Well, we didn't last week, but hopefully we will this week. But
yeah, didn't you?
They did.
Or was it 2 weeks ago they won?
Yeah.
Yeah. I see you were all excited. Anyways, just myself. There must be a movie about the Arnolds in Ottumwa.
Yep.
I think there was a documentary on that.
The Queen of Meth.
Yep, that's what she just said. And Amanda Lee said not to give up, that they all care and don't lose faith.
And I love this. Talk around town can be rumors. Sometimes there's going to be some truth in rumors.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
You know, there's absolutely no doubt, and that's, you know, that's what, you know, has brought some of these stories to light. Is you hear different rumors from different people and different versions of the rumors over the years, and you learn to sort out, okay, what's the commonality of all these rumors? Comes down to, you know, to certain things, and that's where I start drawing what's the truth. You know, I mean, you know, it's back to that old police line when you're dealing with stuff. You know, I don't know what was that show that was on that I used to watch all the time, but the one guy used it on there all the time, and I ended up using it throughout my whole career. When you were dealing with people, you'd always tell them that, you know, hey, there's two sides of the story, and somewhere in the middle of that is the truth.
Right.
You know? So it's the same thing, you know. I mean,
well, and that's like dealing with any story. There's his side, her side, and then you put those together, and I've got the middle story that's going to be the truth.
Exactly. You know, it never fails. You know, I mean, you know, it's you know, that's human instinct. You know, I mean, I don't care what it is. Human instinct is to protect yourself. So you're always going to shade things in your favor when you're in trouble. You know,
right, absolutely. Well, can y'all think of anything else we need to share tonight?
No, like I said, but if you want to get together and talk about more things in detail.
Oh, we're going to do a part 3, aren't we, Brandy?
Sure, yeah, we can if y'all want to.
Absolutely. And then I've got other people. I'll get a hold of you when we do them, Mark, that I'm going to go on their channel. Yep. Just myself said, the more people who request that file, the more the county attorney will get notified that there are people watching.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So we definitely need to.
I'll pull it out just to make them think so.
Yeah. You know, and the county, you know, I mean, the sheriff was all, you know, he was kind of pissed off when I first did that. And he's like, you know, and we had a meeting with him and the county attorney there, and he was kind of pissed that I'd done that. But, and the county attorney even told him, he said, you know, Sheriff, it's pretty simple. You know, as soon as this story's been brought back to life, he goes, this is not going to be the first one that we get. So you might as well just get over it. You know, that's what it's for. That's what it's there for, you know, is so that you can reach, you know, so people can get that information, you know, and you never know. Somebody might see something I don't see, you know,
right. Oh, absolutely. Because a fresh pair of eyes always comes in handy.
Yep. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
But yeah, well, I'd be more than happy. We can do this anytime. So just get a hold of me.
Y'all figure out a good time and just let me know, and we'll do another one. Absolutely, and bring some more details or whatever we need to do.
Well, you let me know, Brandy. And I mean, you're going to be having surgery.
Yeah. A lot of my life's going to depend on what they tell me on the surgery.
Yeah. So let's just wait, and then once you figure that out, we can schedule it.
All right. I know next week I've got my Hopper Road case because it's our anniversary on that case, and so we're doing that next week.
Awesome.
Okay.
And like I say, you know, that'll give me some more time to get things sorted out, get a new Facebook group up and going, and
yes,
some
and
other
make
stuff.
sure you send that to me, and I will make sure to share that.
Yep,
I'll get it to everybody too, Brandy. Yep. Are we still planning on me coming over tomorrow night, Mark? Is that still okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay.
All righty. Well, thank you guys so much for tonight.
All right.
Thank you, Brandy. I appreciate. And anybody else that is willing to let Mark and me on that hasn't told me, get a hold of me. I would love to bring Mark on and get Harry's story out there. You guys know how much it means to me, and I know it means the world to Mark.
Yep. I appreciate it, guys.
Thank y'all so much.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Yep.
Good night.
Well, guys, thanks for joining us tonight. Hope everybody had a good night. That was a lot of information. Thoroughly enjoyed having Mark on panel. A little bit different. What is TC's? Just myself. Her link was up there earlier. Can one of you ladies drop TCA's link on her? You can get her YouTube, and maybe you can reach her through there. Or yeah, I should have had dropped that. Her email. It might be in her about section. If you comment on one of her TCA's channel, Froggy, if you comment on one of her videos, she'll message you. That's what I did to get a hold of her because I didn't have a way to get her on Facebook. Okay, great. I would do that one, and she'll get you so that y'all can hook up and get together. I'm a little not used to not actually being completely set up like normal with this knee like it is. I am way out of my element here, guys. But thank y'all for joining me tonight. Next week, I will be talking about the Hopper Road case. I will have Angie back on so that we can talk about some updates and things on that case, which is a cold case murder from, 2006, I believe. Lord, I can't remember the year. I'm out of it, guys. I am so sorry. I hate to not be prepared. But anyways, it is the anniversary of the murder of Jennifer Burkett and Curtis Francis. And so we will be discussing that case and where it's at and some movement that we're trying to make happen and getting some answers for those families as well. I'm not sure what that is, just myself. Hopper Road, Hopper. It's a cold case, a double homicide in Piketon, Ohio. But I'm gonna hop off of here and get some more things done. Y'all have a good weekend. Remember to love your families. And you never know when the I love you will be the last one you say to them. And so that's been something that's been sticking with me a lot lately. It's just too many people, too angry and too bitter, and we're losing the focus of people and being kind and loving one another. So have a good night, everybody. Thank you for joining me. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe and give me a thumbs up. I appreciate it. And everyone have a good night.